Hi everyone, today I'll be talking about how to solve cubic equations, and first of all we need to factorize the cubic polynomial using these smaller steps. So we need to use try and error to find a linear factor and use factor theorem to check it. Right, next we need to use long division to break the cubic polynomial into the product of a linear factor multiplied with the quadratic quotient. Alright, then this resulting quadratic quotient we need to try to factorize if possible. Alright, and then lastly, when we want to finally solve the cubic equation, we actually set each of the factor to 0 and solve for x. Alright, let's look at this example here where we are asked to factorize 3x cubed minus 10x squared plus 9x minus 2, and in part B we are further asked to set that to 0 and solve the equation. Alright, so first of all, I will, as described before, be using try and error to figure out what is one of the linear factors. Alright, and here I try x equals to 1, so therefore by working backwards, x equals to 1 is actually x minus 1 equals to 0, and therefore I conclude x minus 1 is a factor by factor theorem. Okay, so this process of try and error is not always going to be perfect. So let's say we have tried some other values of x where let's say we try to sub in -1. Alright, and we arrive at a remainder of -24, so we know that this does not satisfy the condition for factor theorem for us to conclude that there is a factor. So therefore we can always try again, and then finally we arrive at the correct value of x, which will give us the remainder of 0, and then by factor theorem we know x minus 1 is a factor. Okay, so we'll be using x minus 1 as the divisor in the long division. Okay, so in order to get rid of this 3x cubed in this long division, I'm going to multiply x with 3x squared. So it's going to give me 3x cubed here, and then 3x squared times -1 is going to give me -3x squared. So -10x squared minus -3x squared is going to give me -7x squared, and I'm going to just bring down the 9x here. Okay, and then in the next term for the quotient, I'm going to try to put in -7x, because -7x times x is going to give me -7x squared. Alright, and -7x times -1 is going to give me positive 7x. Okay, so 9x minus 7x is going to give me 2x. Alright, and then we'll bring down the -2 there. Alright, and then finally we put in +2 here, where positive 2 multiplied with x is going to give me 2x, and then this positive 2 multiplied with -1 is going to give me -2. So -2 minus -2 is going to give me a remainder of 0, and that is as what we desire. Alright, so we can conclude that 3x cubed minus 10x squared plus 9x minus 2 can be factorized into x minus 1, which is the linear factor we found out earlier on, and then we have the quadratic quotient 3x squared minus 7x plus 2. Alright, so of course we can also further factorize this using whichever method as you prefer. So I'm going to just use a quick method here. So x times 3x is going to give me 3x squared. Alright, and then because this constant 2 over here is basically just 1 times 2, and then I notice that there is a -7x for the middle term. I'm going to try to put this as 2, and this is 1, and then because we need -7x for our middle term, so I'm going to try to put this as -2, and then this is -1. Alright, and then of course we check our factorization. Okay, and negative 2 times 3x is going to give me negative 6x, and then x times negative 1 is going to give me negative x. So that's going to give me the middle term of negative 7x. And then, of course, checking the constant term of negative 2 times negative 1 is going to give me positive 2. And then we are happy with this factorization. Before I talk about how to solve the cubic equation in part B, I'll make a quick mention about how to obtain this 3x squared minus 7x plus 2 without the use of long division. Alright, so I'm going to express the original cubic polynomial as a product of x minus 1 times of the general quadratic expression ax squared plus bx plus c. So obviously I'm going to have to find out what are the values of a, b, and c. Okay, so the technique I'll be using is to compare the coefficients of certain terms. In particular, I'll first be targeting the x cubed and the constant term. So in general, this is a good idea because these two terms are going to be really quite straightforward to figure out. So first of all, if I were to look for the x cubed term, okay, I should actually be taking the x times with the ax squared. So I'm going to get ax cubed. And then if I were to compare to the left hand side, the only term is actually 3x cubed for there. So if we were to compare the coefficients, then we figure out that the 3 is coefficient of x cubed on the left hand side is equal to a, which is a coefficient of x cubed on the right hand side. Alright, so we have now found out one of the values, which is a equals to 3. Alright, so next I'm going to be targeting the constant term. So I'm going to erase some things first. Okay, in order for us to find the constant term, we actually just take the constant multiply with the constant, which is actually negative 1 times of c. And then on the left hand side, it is actually negative 2 as a constant term. So we have negative 2 equals to negative c, and c equals to 2. Okay, so now we have already found another value, which is c equals to 2. Okay, and then finally, in order for us to figure out what is the value of b, we're going to have to do a bit more work. Alright, and I'm going to be comparing the coefficient of x. So we actually also can compare the coefficient of x squared, right? But for here, I choose to compare the coefficient of x. Alright, so first of all, let's figure out how can we obtain the x term. So there are two ways here. First of all, x can be multiplied with the constant term there, and then negative 1 can be multiplied with the bx over there. So here, x times c, which is 2, alright, will give us positive 2x. Right, and then negative 1 times bx is going to give us negative bx. So if we were to just be isolating the coefficient, then that's going to give us 2 minus b. Alright, and then on the left hand side, we know that the coefficient of x is actually 9. So therefore, if we were to solve that, we're going to get b equals to 2 minus 9, which is negative 7. So now we have found the value of b, which is negative 7. So that's how we get this expression over here. Okay, so now we proceed to solve the cubic equation in part B, and most of the hard parts are done. Alright, so if we were to set 3x cubed minus 10x squared plus 9x minus 2 equals to 0. Alright, that is equivalent to saying x minus 1 times x minus 2 times 3x minus 1 equals to 0. And therefore, right, by the zero product rule, we will have x minus 1 equals to 0, or x minus 2 equals to 0, or 3x minus 1 equals to 0, and then we will solve for the values of x, which is x equals to 1, and then x equals to 2, and then 3x equals to 1, which is x equals to 1/3. So these are our 3 solutions for the cubic equation. So thanks for watching this video. Until the next video, goodbye.